Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Hi friends, it's Emily with Emily T Astrology, and I am your host for Hermes Speaks. This is your weekly astro check-in where we explore the current quality of time and bring in some added mercurial insights through the written word and bibliomancy. This week, we see Venus, our goddess of love, beauty, relationships, women, sisters, preferences, and art, conjoining Chiron, the wounded healer, in the sign of Aries. And on the same day, we see the moon passing through Cancer, where she will conjoin Jupiter and square both Venus and Chiron. This is taking place on March 26th, when Venus conjoins Chiron at 25 degrees of Aries, and then the moon passing through Cancer on the 26th and forming those squares to Venus and Chiron either late on the evening of the 26th or into the wee hours of the 27th, depending on your time zone. Venus and the moon are the only two women in the traditional pantheon of planets. The sun was said to be masculine, the ideal image, the unchanging solar vital force. Mercury, okay, a little androgynous. They could kind of go anyway. We get to Mars, certainly masculine, the warrior god of war. Jupiter, masculine. Jupiter, Zeus, the ruler, the guru. And Saturn, father time, right? Masculine in the traditional pantheon. So what we're looking at here with Venus and the moon were the two feminine or female or goddesses in the traditional pantheon of planets. They can be described in one narrow, kind of singular way as the two aspects of woman that are valued, that are assigned worth in our patriarchal or in any patriarchal society. The moon is mother. Mother is a value because she gives birth to people, primarily men, in power, and she gives birth to and is the mother to the children of important, powerful men. Venus is the lover and is assigned value and worth in offering her body and her sensual delights to those powerful men. Sometimes they could be the same woman, both mother and lover, and often they were not. But I look at these two archetypes today in this narrow, singular framework just for our purposes today, and I want to be clear that, of course, moon represents much more than just mother, Venus much more than just lover, but that is how I am looking at this transit between Venus and Chiron and the moon. And just hang with me here. I'm looking at them in this narrow, singular way. So we have mother and lover involved in this week's astrology. The lover, Venus, is conjoining Chiron and Eris. Chiron has spent a fair amount of time in Aries. It first moved into the sign in 2018 and will be making its first step out into Taurus over the summer. In June, it moves into Taurus for a few months. We'll back up into Aries and will leave the sign for good by April of 2027. So Chiron and Aries has been a nearly, it's been 7 years, will be nearly 8 years of a transit that is an energy we have been sitting with for a while now. And Venus, our lover, comes to join Chiron. Now, what does Chiron represent? In myth, Chiron was a teacher, a guide, a healer, and a guru who became incurably wounded for eternity. And our wound in Aries speaks very much to wounds around identity, the right to exist as assertive, individual, independent, sovereign people, the pain, the constant ache, the constant twanging of the nerve for Chiron and Aries is often about that. Do I have the right to exist as an individual? Where have I given up my sovereignty, my unique, assertive, brave, courageous, bold, vital energy and voice and autonomy? Do I even have the right to express individuality and my independent opinions and ideas? Then we have the lover, Venus, coming to Chiron in this sign. Venus is not always comfortable in Aries. She is as far away from her home sign of Libra as can be, and is therefore a stranger in a strange land. She is said to be exiled or in detriment when in Aries. She is the planet that wants to relate and conjoin in union. She wants to couple, literally coupling as the lover in the sexual act with someone else. And in Aries, this sign that is all about assertive independence, that is a Mars and Sun-ruled sign of bravery, action, war, violence, aggression, courage, and assertiveness. Venus is not very comfortable. She is not able to act in her role as diplomatic relationship harmonizer as she typically would like. But in Aries, Venus is maybe a little bit more assertive, maybe a little bit more passionate in her independent role within relationships. When Venus comes to Chiron, the wounded healer, and embraces that wound, that ache, that twanging, painful nerve of our wounds around, do we have the right to exist as individuals? The lover is sitting within. How have I been wounded by giving up my own sense of autonomy, my own sense of assertiveness, my own sense of independent opinion? How has that wounded me? And we look at this lover goddess resting within that wound. What has been lost to me in my suppression of my assertive power? And as Venus speaks to women in general, this feels very timely in that Venus coming in contact, the lover women coming in contact with the wound around assertive, independent, sovereign, courageous, brave, bold, and passionate action on the behalf of the self speaks to me of a moment in time, in our history, in our society, in our collective, when Venus wants to stand up and shout and scream and say, I have been wounded. I have silenced my voice for too long. I have suppressed my independent, sovereign nature in the name of trying to keep the peace and maintaining the harmony. And this is what this conjunction between Venus, the lover, the woman, and Chiron says to me. That women, those who identify as women, and you know what, frankly, anyone who has felt that they have needed to suppress their independent, unique, individual selves in order to maintain the peace and be the submissive, receptive lover for those in power. It is time for us to step up and proclaim our voices, proclaim our independence, proclaim our wound, to speak it aloud and not in terms that are pretty, that are easy to hear, or are easy to swallow, but that are honest and raw. That's what this feels like to me. And it's amplified and magnified by another planetary archetype I will bring in shortly. But we also need to look at the moon, the mother, right? The moon on this same day on March 26th is passing through the sign of Cancer. She will conjoin Jupiter, and then she will square Venus and Chiron that have just earlier in the day come to this exact conjunction. And the mother in Cancer wants to protect, wants to nurture and nourish and create a safe environment for those she loves and for herself, emotional safety, and also physical safety, but this is the moon we're talking about, moon speaks to our bodies as well. And they are in this square 90-degree hard aspect to each other, an aspect of choice, of dynamism, of conflict, of friction. And so I wonder if the moon here, as my wonderful friend Whitney Kranz of Astro Arcana said last week on our episode where we discussed the Aries equinox, she thinks of the moon as the weaver, the witness of divine timing. So the moon moving through her home sign of Cancer, wanting to nourish, wanting to protect, wanting to maintain emotional safety, sometimes to the point of being insular or being uncomfortable with outsiders because that might be a threat to the safety of her own. We may feel a very significant tension this week between urgent sense and feeling and need that we want to rise up and speak our voices and shout and scream in ugliness, in rawness about the wounds of women, the wounds of the outsider, the wounds of the receptive lover who have suppressed their own identities, suppressed their own voices. This is urgent. This feels urgent. It feels powerful. It feels raw. It feels angry. It feels angry. I gotta tell you, as a woman and as a mother, I'm pissed. Okay? And I know I'm not alone in that. There's an intense urge, I think, right now. It's already here. But it will be amplified this week as Venus comes into this conjunction with Chiron, that it is time to stand up and use our voices to say who we are and how we have been wounded, right? And yet there will be potentially, with the moon on that very same day forming the square aspect in the kind of insular protective sign of Cancer, we may feel that may be real hard to do. It may feel very uncomfortable to stand up and say something because it might feel unsafe, right? It might feel unsafe to do that. We might feel emotionally like we're I heard a friend of mine use the phrase vulnerability hangover. It might feel like that, like, oh golly, I don't want to open up my mouth because if I let it all out, I can't take it back. And I've opened up, like, you know, when you've had a fever in your skin, your skin feels raw, or like I had when I was pregnant with my second, I had a lot of edema, swelling. And when that finally went down, my skin felt like raw and painful because it had been stretched. That's what I get the sense of. We are going to feel a tension. We potentially might feel real attention around this urgent, upswelling need to use our voices, and a real sense of vulnerability and fear around the threat to our own safety that might present. That's how I'm seeing, the mother who wants to protect and nurture, and the lover who has been wanting to be receiving but is fucking tired of it. Okay? they're loud this week. The feminine archetypes are loud. They have something to say. They feel a lot. They won't be silenced. And it's going to be hard. It might be hard. We might really feel vulnerable. We might really be vulnerable. Yeah. That's really what I'm feeling coming in this week. And I have to add in a planetary body I don't normally work with, I don't normally pay attention to, but a dear friend of mine sent a screenshot of a Substack article that she read, and it was as I was planning this talk, and it opened my eyes to something that Eris is also currently at 25 degrees of Aries. And she and Chiron are actually making their third and final conjunction in the sign of Aries the day I'm actually recording this, which is March 19th, 2026. So Chiron, our wounded healer, is in conjunction with Eris. Okay, so let's back up. Who's Eris, right? Eris in myth was the goddess who was not invited to the party, right? To the wedding feast, depending on which story. She was not invited, and she was pissed. Why was she left out? Why wasn't she offered a seat at the table, right? And she came to the party anyway, and she threw the golden apple. And through a series of unfolding events, she essentially initiated the Trojan War, right? Eris has come to represent the goddess of strife, the goddess who speaks for the downtrodden, who speaks for those who don't have a voice, she's an instigator. She comes in, she throws the apple, she starts the war, but it's not because of anything she really did. It's because she opens the floodgates and throws the spark into the cauldron of circumstances that have been brewing, that have been kind of like festering under the surface. Eris comes in and says, here's the apple. Which one of you is the fairest? Fight it out. And they do fight it out because of their own issues, their own problems, right? She's the instigator. She's the goddess of strife. She comes in and says, just because I'm scary, just because I'm ugly, just because I have teeth, you can't keep ostracizing me. You can't keep telling us other. We're not allowed at the table, right? And so Eris, this instigative, goddess of strife, who says, I will speak for those who do not have a voice. And I will expose your own issues, your own shit that you've got going on. I'm not going to let it slide anymore. Here I am. Eris and Chiron are coming together in their exact conjunction. And that is taking place, as I said, on the day that I'm recording this, on the 19th of March at 24 degrees and 59 minutes of Aries. By the time we get to the conjunction of Venus and Chiron on the 26th of March, all three planets, Venus, Chiron, and Eris, are still in the 25th. They're at 25 degrees of Aries. Okay, so I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole when my friend sent me that screenshot last night, and I was already thinking about this talk, and I started researching some dates. I find it fascinating that in this current transit of Chiron through the sign of Aries, well, okay, first of all, Eris stays in a sign for a really long time. Her orbit is actually outside of Pluto's. Pretty much everyone who is alive today has Eris in Aries in their chart. She stays in a sign for decades and decades and decades, okay? So she's been in Aries for a while. Chiron, as I said, first moved into Aries in 2018 and then backed back up into Pisces for a bit, came in officially in February of 2019 and has been in Aries since then. This current conjunction that took place on March 19th is the third of three total conjunctions between Chiron and Eris in Aries during this transit of Chiron in Aries. The first took place on May 27th of last year, 2025, at 25 degrees of Aries and 28 minutes. And then again on October 9th of 2025, 25 degrees of Aries and 15 minutes. And then this is the final one, March 19th, 2026, 24 degrees and 59 minutes of Aries. I wanted to look back and see, since Eris has been in Aries forever, for decades and decades, right? I knew that Chiron takes about 50 years to go around its orbit around the sun. And so sometime in this previous century, we would have had conjunctions between Chiron and Eris and Aries before. And that actually did occur in 1971 and 1972. So May 30th of 1971, Chiron at 12 degrees and 54 minutes of Aries conjoined Eris. On September 7th, 1971, at 12 degrees and 45 minutes, Chiron conjoined Eris in Aries. And then, and get this, I love this shit, on March 19th, 1972, so the same exact date, 54 years ago, we had Chiron at 12 degrees and 26 minutes of Aries conjoined to Eris in Aries. Again, a 3-time pass of these conjunctions between Chiron and Eris, our wounded healer, our wound, our deep identity wound around assertiveness, around sovereignty of individuality, independence, and self-expression. Meeting the goddess of strife who says, like, I'm going to expose it. Stop telling me I don't have an invitation to the freaking party, okay? And so I just wanted to look back and see, since that date being the exact same date, March 19th, I just Googled, okay, main current events that occurred on or around March 19th, 1972. Okay, you guys are going to love this. It's great. So all of these events that I'm about to list off occurred between March 15th of 1972 and March 23rd of 1972. So it's about 7-8 days, okay? On March 15th, The Godfather. You've heard of it, I'm sure. The movie The Godfather debuted, made its cinematic debut. On March 16th, Nixon addresses the nation to propose a moratorium on forced busing to do with desegregation of schools. Okay? On March 17th, 1972, Mia Hamm, the famous American soccer player, is born, an athletic woman. And I gotta say, I stopped writing them down and I decided not to include them. There were a lot of basketball players, soccer players, wrestlers, very athletic, very Marsy, athletic people who were famous for their sports born during this period. So Mia Hamm was born on the 17th of March, 1972. On the 19th, the actual exact day of the conjunction between Eris and Chiron, Immaculata University, a women's college basketball team, the first women's college basketball championship in the U.S. They were the winners, Immaculata University. The first women's college basketball team wins a champion. On the 21st, March 21st, 1972, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down as unconstitutional a Tennessee law requiring a 1-year residency in the state before a person could register to vote. Okay? You cannot tell me I don't have a seat at the table. The Supreme Court said that's not okay. You can't tell people that they have to have lived somewhere as citizens of this country for a full year before they're allowed to vote in that place. Okay? Love this. Love it. On March 22nd, 1972, the proposed Equal Rights Amendment was approved by the United States Senate after the House passed it on October 12th of the previous year, 1971. What was taking place right around that time? On September 7th, so just about a month prior to that, was that second conjunction between Eris and Chiron. Okay, so the House passed it around the second conjunction of Eris and Chiron in 1971, and the Senate passed it around the 3rd. On March 22nd, 1972, the Schaefer Commission, a 13-member panel created by Congress, unanimously recommended the removal of federal and state restrictions against the personal possession and private use of marijuana. Okay? Just think about that for a little bit. Also, on the 22nd of March, 1972, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that unmarried people had the same rights to contraceptive products as married people did. Love this shit. I love it. And then on the 23rd, 1972, March 23rd, 1972, the world's first Green Party meeting took place. Okay, so these, and there were more. And like I said, there was a ton of births of basketball things, soccer things, a wrestler, births during this 8-day window. Athletic people who become known for being outliers, a woman's soccer player, right? Mia Hamm. So what do we get from this? Okay, the last time that we saw the third and final conjunction between Chiron and Eris and Aries in 1972, and Venus also in the mix here. Within a week, we've got Venus, all of them, all three of them, Venus, Chiron, and Eris, all still at 25 degrees on the 26th of March of Aries. It's time. It's time to stand up, to fight the good fight, to use our voices, to express ourselves, to say we deserve the same rights. We deserve the same rights. And I was thinking about that phrase, hell hath no fury, like the woman scorned, which is actually, it's not Shakespeare. I looked it up because I thought it was Shakespeare. It's actually a paraphrased quote from a play by William Congreve, a 1697 play called Mourning Bride, and mourning as in to grieve, not mourning as in the sun. Mourning Bride, 1697. Hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, yeah, women are pissed, right? Everyone who's been told that they're not allowed to sit at the table, we're pissed. All of the othered people, we're pissed. We feel scorned, and we feel fury, right? And then also, that's I love how that phrase puts all of the onus on the women too, the scorned woman. Like there's no reference to who the scorner was, who scorned her, what they did. So let me just say that, right? Let's keep this in perspective. Maybe there ought to be some accountability for the people who have scorned the women. Right. I'll just say that too. But hell hath no fury. There's a lot more of us. There's a lot more of us who have been made to fight for the scraps that fall off the table and fight amongst each other and blame each other because there's not enough freaking scraps to go around. Then there are powerful people sitting at that table. There's a lot more of us. And if all of us are rising up with fury, with our voices, not pretty ones, not softened ones, but raw ones and true ones and real ones and brave ones and courageous ones, and exposing something that feels incredibly vulnerable, what could we do? What change could we make, right? So Venus, Chiron, Aries, Eris. Yeah. What can we do, right? What can our rage, our fury, our scorned hearts accomplish if we were to band together and stand up? And then, take the part of the moon over in Cancer, help each other out, provide safe places and comfort and security for each other. Yeah? Let's stop fighting for those freaking scraps that fall off the table. Build our own freaking gardens. We'll make our own meal, okay? Whew. So, that's what I got for you here. But this is Hermie Speaks, right? This is our show where we bring in bibliomancy, and I wouldn't leave you hanging here. This week I decided to pull from Maya Angelou's Wouldn't Take Nothing for My Journey Now. It's a kind of a collection of short essays that was published in, I want to say 1993. And the back description, it's been on my shelf. I don't even know how long I've had this book. It says, Maya Angelou, one of the best-loved authors of our time, shares the wisdom of a remarkable life in this best-selling spiritual classic. This is a book to be treasured, a book about being in all ways a woman, about living well, about the power of the world, and about the power of spirituality to move and shape your life. So it just felt like the right book given the context of these transits that we've just been discussing. And I opened the book and I turned to a page. Actually, I turned to this page here, but the one before it, the title of this is What's So Funny? And I read this. Some entertainers have tried to make art of their coarseness, but in their public crudeness, they have merely revealed their own vast senses of personal inferiority. When they heap mud upon themselves and allow their tongues to wag with vulgarity, they expose their belief that they are not worth loving and are, in fact, unlovable. When we as audience indulge them in that profanity, we are not unlike Romans at a Colosseum battle between unarmed Christians and raging lions. We not only participate in the humiliation of the entertainers, we are brought low by sharing in the obscenity. We need to have the courage to say that vulgarity is not amusing. Insolent children and submissive parents are not the characters we want to admire and emulate. Flippancy and sarcasm are not the only ways in which conversation can be conducted. If the emperor is standing in my living room, stripped to the buff, nothing should prevent me from saying that since he has no clothes on, he is not ready for public congress. At any rate, not lounging on my sofa and munching on my trail mix. Insolent children and submissive parents are not the characters we want to admire and emulate. Can we think of any current people who are behaving like insolent children? And are we, being submissive parents, allowing it? Right? That's just a question. I don't know. For your consideration. And then there's also this piece about like when we engage in the vulgarity, when we allow ourselves to sink to the level, we not only participate in the humiliation of the entertainer, the person that we are putting on high, that we are witnessing, that we are like hungry for them to entertain us, to like fill us up with something. We're not only participating in their humiliation, we're participating, like we're debasing our own selves, right? I think in light of everything that I was saying before about it's time we stand up, we're raw, we're honest, we're truthful, we use our voices, we scream. The fact that I opened the book and read this, perhaps it's a little bit of a warning, don't allow yourselves to, in your rage, in the urgency to express yourself, to sink into crassness, right? Just because it feels like, well, we've been treated with vulgarity, so I'm gonna, let's fight fire with fire. I'm gonna play the devil card too. No. How can we be authentic and honest and real and true and cut through the fluffy, I'm gonna be entertaining, I'm gonna be, sensational. And this book was published in 1993, way before social media, right? Way before the age of the attention economy, right? That we're currently, myself included, we're trying to claw our way back into claw our way back to our own sense of humanity. Have we allowed ourselves to be so consumed with the outrage, the crassness, the depravity that we're humiliating ourselves. We're participating in it. So lest we do that, remember that we have integrity and that to speak our truths, to speak our voices, to stand up and to say the ways in which we have been hurt. No, don't sugarcoat them. Don't paint them to be nicer or prettier or softer than they are. Don't do that. But don't resort to sensationalism, to profanity, just to get attention, just to stir the pot. It's not about stirring the pot. It's not about sinking to their level. It's about proclaiming your truth and saying, let's make our own meal. Screw that table. Let's build our own table. Let's grow our own food. Let's make our own meal, right? Let them fight amongst themselves. Let's stop fighting amongst each other. Let's stop sinking to the baseness that we have allowed to run the narrative, tell the story. And we're flocking to it, right? We're so the emperor is standing in my living room without any clothes on. But he's presented himself in such a way that he's the emperor, and so I'm not supposed to comment on the fact that he's not freaking clothed. He's not ready to talk to me if he doesn't have his ding-dong covered up, right? Call it out. Call it for what it is. Stop allowing the insolent children to run the show, right? Don't be the submissive parent. I don't know. I'm on my high horse today. Clearly, I'm feeling something. Feeling something about this. Look, I hope you got something out of this today. I think I did. Saying a little something using my own voice in my own small part of the world. So if you enjoyed this, please subscribe, share it with your friends. Let me know, does this resonate with you? Leave me a comment. I would love to engage with you on any of these topics. Clearly, I'm passionate about it all. And if you're looking to have a reading during this very pivotal, important astrological year with a professional, come see me. You can go to emilytatomer.com to book a reading with me. I'd love to connect with you. Use your fury for good, yeah? Let's alchemize our rage into incredible and beautiful creativity. I'll see you next week.